Hello, everyone. I'm happy to be with you today. Yeah, it's a pity that I'm not able to come to the beautiful city of Poznan this year. But I'm still happy to contribute to this fabulous event. And thank you, Positive Technologies, for inviting me to this edition of the conference. The topic I'm going to share today is landed up being on the Agile stream, but it's not an agile topic per se. The thing I would like to focus today on is called the place of software craftsmanship in the modern product development. And as you can understand, we will be talking mostly about the place of software, the role of the software engineer in delivering the modern successful products. Few words about myself. My name is Denis. I'm based in Krakow, Poland, and started my career in IT in 2014. Currently, I try to juggle with several roles I'm taking, being head of agile practices at the unicorn startup PandaDoc, being a trainer and consultant together with my partners in the company called Co-Actors, and also working as a LS and organizational design consultant at the company Agile Expat. So as you can see, my recent activity is directly related to Agile and all things around Agile, but at the same time, I believe that this talk might surprise you with its content. Many things I will be talking about are based on my first-hand experience at various product companies and startups across the world, most in Europe. You can see some of the logos on your screen right now. So there are both successful startups like PandaDoc and N26. There are some startups which are mostly known to the local audience, but still up and running nowadays. There are many fintech companies in this list as well. So yeah, there are several topics I would like us to talk about today. And the initial idea I would like us to discuss is the role of Agile in the modern software development, how it all started, what was the purpose behind it, and yeah, where we find ourselves now, 22 years later after the signing of the Agile Manifesto. So Manifesto for Agile Software Development, or Agile Manifesto, as many of us might know it, has been signed a long time ago. It happened in 2001 in a snowy resort in the US, where several people who were very interested about product and software development gathered together to share their observations about things that work, things that don't work, struggles they face in their daily routine, and define some values, principles, and guiding advices that could help their colleagues succeed. So it's important to mention, and I keep paying attention to that again and again every time I speak about the manifesto, is that initially it was prepared by a group of software enthusiasts. So out of 17 authors of the manifesto, 14 were active developers, architects, or engineers back in 2001. And its initial purpose was to uncover better ways of delivering software by doing it and helping others do it. But yeah, now when we live in the modern world in 2023, we may see how it actually worked out in reality. So we see that many people bash Agile or different Agile approaches like Scrum for failing to deliver that promise. For many people, especially for those who joined the software industry much later, Agile is not something new. Agile is something they've heard about for the first time still being students, or maybe when they got enthusiastic about software development in the high school. And many people actually not that big fans of Agile, let's put it that way. So if you scroll around the internet, if you search through Google, or if you search through blogging platforms like Medium, you'll find lots of articles like this one saying that Agile doesn't work, that Scrum sucks, that Scrum doesn't work, and that whole Agile stuff is a myopia, or basically a attempt to make everyone do things which don't work anymore. And given the initial idea behind the manifesto, it should make us raise our eyebrows, because how so it happens that the idea, which was created by software engineers for software engineers, aimed at creating better products, ended up in the current state? Well, there are obviously many reasons behind that, but one of the reasons, which I myself must admit as well, that at some point the whole agile industry turned into an agile industrial complex, meaning that there were lots of companies around it. Many of them were providing some consultancy or certification options, and very soon, like I would say by mid 2010s, the whole initial idea behind Agile became forgotten. Nowadays, if you have recently joined the software industry, you might consider Agile being bullshit, or Agile being something that has been created by managers for managers, not by software engineers for software engineers. And what we see, the situation we see makes us question ourselves. Has Agile failed the developers? And also try to understand, okay, what went wrong when applying its ideas in practice? Why did it happen that the document that consists of 4 values and 12 principles describing a modern, improved way towards delivering software ended up like this? There are many reasons behind that, and there were many ideas which were supposed to reinforce the ideas described in the Agile Manifesto. For example, such engineering approaches as domain-driven design, which is basically an approach towards architecture, which is supposed to bridge or merge the business language, business context with the software context or architectural context. Or behavioral driven development, which was supposed to help engineers better understand how the system should work by talking directly to users of the system, by talking directly to the business owners, and making the same language and making the same logic being used in software as in the language they communicate in, being English, for example, or Polish in our case. But in fact, we got a failed promise of Agile. So you might have seen many pictures like that, where they say that in order for a company to be Agile, you need to have an inverted pyramid of the company, where the team or customer or engineer or employee is on the top, not the C-level, and everyone below serves in order to make the lives of people above better. So it's not like customers just bringing money, employees just working their 40-hour shifts to deliver everything, and CEO get all the money, but CEO and executive team being there for employees to enable them to deliver what's needed for customers, and customers to be happy. But in reality, it didn't work like that for many companies. So many concepts got substituted. So the yesterday project managers just got a new batch of Scrum Master and started doing the so-called Scrum stuff by the book. Yesterday, architectural components turned into products, and we ended up having product owners working with the product backlog for a thing which is not a product from the end user perspective. We transformed individual KPIs, which were measuring the amount of tickets you deliver, or the amount of strings of code you write, or how many commits you do, into personal OKRs that were initially supposed to make you more empowered, more enthusiastic about your work, but in the end were doing the same old thing. We renamed managers into leaders and assumed that only by switching those titles, people will behave differently, people will demonstrate different kind of attitude towards their employees and towards the companies they work for. And yeah, we turned the sweatshops where people are expected to work more than 40 hours a week, and to be crunching, and to be staying up late for some on-call duties, etc. And we put a label of startup culture on that to just have it a fancy name and make sure that this changes the pittiness of working in such an environment. And yeah, there are still people in the modern agile environment who understand that all these things went wrong. And when we see companies doing that kind of stuff, we typically call it lipstick agile. So basically the companies which didn't change in their nature, they didn't change inside, they just took a lipstick and put some makeup on their face with new titles, new beautiful organizational hierarchies, and new fancy buzzwords to be applied to the same old concepts that we've seen before. But there is a problem with that. There is a big problem because, first of all, it makes many engineers, and maybe you're one of those people, become very negative about Agile, become very negative about approaches that are covered behind the umbrella of Agile, like Scrum, like Kanban, like scaling approaches. And you're not the person to blame for sure. This is absolutely true. I've been in that place as well myself. And unfortunately, over time, I see these growing into people tending to follow their confirmation bias. So the more we believe that Agile and everything related to Agile is bad, the more we tend to put negative label on everything that has Agile in its title or in its name. And though it's absolutely clear and understandable from the human perspective, from the human nature perspective, I believe that limits our abilities towards taking ideas which make sense and consciously applying them in our working environments. So there are quite some things which have been done in a negative way, not only towards engineers. When we talk about the modern product management, which is impossible without software engineers, if we take software products or hardware products, which combine software with some actually stuff that you can touch, that you can feel in your hands, we see lots of those negative tendencies happening as well. Many organizations, unfortunately, get product management wrong. So when we try to take a look at the modern landscape of the product management, we see that there are so many things that good product managers need to be aware of, or product organizations need to be aware of. So many things to take care of that it's impossible to be limited only to like the classical business architect role. If we are working in a product startup or in a product company which is not providing the group of engineers or specialists to be outsourced to a different company, but you're working on your own product, you need to keep in mind such things as, of course, mission and vision why your product exists. You need to understand how to identify the product market fit and how to validate the problem statement that you've identified, and so how to validate the solution. You need to understand how to enable growth for the product through different growth strategies. You need to work with, if your product gets product market fit and takes off and you gain first traction, you need to understand how to multiply these results, how to grow from 0 to 1, from 1 to 100, from 100 to 1,000, etc. And there is a growing and deeper specialization in the product management field as well. But this is a reality that I often see working with startups, with companies who try to create innovations and try to be in the forefront of the market. Many companies which call themselves agile companies are still approaching it in a completely different way. So one very common anti-pattern when we talk about product management and applying agile approaches is having so-called fake product owners. Why are they fake? Because they write user stories, they attend Scrum events or ceremonies, as you might call them. They micromanage the team, so the only purpose for them to be at your daily so-called stand-up is to get the report from every team member and if something is going wrong, to blame people, but they do nothing that would have anything in common with the real product management. So many product owners we see in our companies are more like waitresses or waiters than restaurant owners. And when we say product owner, we want to have a real owner in place, the person who does not only have, let's say, decision-making power in order to make tough decisions, in order to sometimes prioritize good things over even better things, or the other way around. We want them to also have skills which are needed for that. And that means that being a good product owner is a hell of a job, which requires constant improvement, constant growth over yourself, constant learning from others, looking for mentors, looking for people who could support you, and first and foremost, understanding why are you building the product, for whom you are building it, and how to get in touch with those people to actually get early and feasible feedback. We also have many companies that misuse the word product. So when the initial Scrum framework has been described back in 2009, many companies saw what has been written there, that there is a product owner, development team, and Scrum Master, and those people work together to develop good products based on the list of requirements they have in the product backlog. So very soon people understood that, okay, we need to apply Scrum, and they started doing it. And as I saw myself in several companies, after getting first successes, they were saying, okay, so this thing works. It works better than what we had before. How do we multiply that effect now? How do we scale that? And since Scrum Guide and at least some Scrum experts were not providing enough clear guidance on that, unfortunately, many companies just decided to follow the path of calling everything they have a product, creating a Scrum team around that product. And this is how you end up with companies having dozens or hundreds of product owners, dozens or hundreds of Scrum teams, which have interdependencies and which are not able to deliver any meaningful work that would satisfy some end user needs in a feasible way within an iteration they call a sprint. And unfortunately, one of the reasons for that is just misusing the label of product. Misusing the label of product to call your architectural components a product, like, I don't know, some team which works on the billing component, team that works on the back office component, team that works on the, like, I know, credit card payments component. Also putting the label of a product on the communication channel. So for example, let's say you're a bank and you have multiple ways to communicate with your customers. So you definitely have a web version of your website with a personal area where people can log in and do some stuff with their accounts. You have a mobile application if you're a modern bank and you want your clients to be able to do their tasks on the go. You probably also have ATMs, because nowadays cash is still being widely used and you want people to be able to withdraw funds from their accounts. You may also have some other things like, I don't know, augmented reality interfaces, separate interface for tablets, and of course, human interface inside your office. Many banks call each of those things a product, which is also wrong, because many of these channels share lots of common functionality and lots of common use cases and user jobs that can be just fulfilled different ways. APIs, SDKs, other things, other ways like, let's say, diversifying the means of delivering your functionality or your product to your customers are also a good example of wrong products. And of course, the internal products, the products which exist to solve some internal needs of the company, which is not bad per se, but which people are using not because they like it over something else, like with a bank, for example, but they're using it because they have to, because this is the way the company decided. The company decided that they want to develop it in-house instead of buying some working software from third party. Though many of those things are needed in order to enable success of a modern business, none of them are, or at least not all of them, are delivering end-to-end value to the end user. And in fact, if we want to focus on delivering value, we need to understand what is the value perceived by the end user and how does it go throughout different parts of our product, and how should we identify our products and assign teams or team and also product owners or product managers towards these meaningful parts of your system or of your product offering. Another common anti-pattern is that product owner and product manager are seen as two different roles, and I've seen it everywhere, and I've seen different variations on how it can be done. One companies will say that there is a product owner who works on the one team level, and then there is a product manager who serves as a direct manager for a set of product owners and identifies such things as strategy, long-term vision, budgeting, etc. There are other companies which say that, yeah, that guy on the top is a product owner, and they have team of minions, team of product managers who do some low-level stuff, working with low-fidelity prototypes, working with product designers, working with teams in order to deliver some working piece of software. In fact, in order to be successful in modern product development, you need to have both. You need to have people who are capable of all that stuff you see in a bigger bubble of product management. So they need to understand the product, the market, the different strategies for customer reach out, different go-to-market strategies, etc., etc. But they also need to be able to communicate with engineers directly. We're in a time when the technology is giving us so much in order to simplify our lives that just delegating translation from technical language to the business language and the other way around to a dedicated role like business analyst seems to me a very outdated idea, which can easily be overcome if you have people just sit together or join for a same call and communicate directly using the plain English or plain Polish language. Though still, there is a place for that separation of product manager and product owner role, but I would advise doing that only if you're working on a really big scale of more than 8 teams delivering the same product, ideally from a single list of requirements, usually called the backlog. Otherwise, you are introducing much more anti-patterns than getting benefits. And yeah, so we talked a little bit about Agile and how it failed, the promises it gave to developers and their initial goals. We also talked that software engineers were not the only role affected by these downsides, but also it did a lot of wrong things to product managers. So what are the ways to overcome that struggle? What are the ways to actually start benefiting from more successful and useful ways of doing work, ways of delivering the modern products? So first of all, I would like to quickly touch the psychological aspect, quoting the Daniel H. Pink book called The Drive, where the author describes the way the intrinsic motivation works based on the modern psychology and based on the things the psychologists were able to identify throughout few last decades. So what's important, according to Daniel Pink, is that there is a strict separation of how motivation works when we talk about extrinsic motivation, being like salary, role, like, I don't know, some additional benefits, and intrinsic motivation. So the one which is coming from within the person. And when Daniel Pink talks about so-called heuristic tasks, so the tasks which require lots of ideation, lots of innovation, where you don't have clear instructions or defined path in order to achieve a success, intrinsic motivation is a king. According to Daniel Pink and according to many psychologists, You can't make a person who needs to do a creative job like painting, like writing software, like creating musical elements, just by paying them more money or just by giving them more higher titles in the hierarchy. That will give you a short result, but over time it will just go down and people will still do the same job but get more money or get uh, more soundy titles. Though I don't say that you don't need to pay respectively to your engineers or to your other employees. So yeah, what I often see is that first of all, engineers in companies are taken, being left without autonomy. So many decisions whom these people will work with in a team or on a project or on some different initiative are made for them. Also, managers or other people in the company often decide when do people need to move from one team to another, under which conditions it will happen, and where will they go. And yeah, very often companies also don't provide any ability to challenge or disagree with these suggestions because they are not treated as suggestions, they're the final decision. Another thing not many people often get is having an ability to understand the bigger picture, to understand the purpose behind what they are doing. So people often decided what they will work on without being consulted. People often decided like when they should start working on something new and put the previous work on pause or on stop. And very often they also don't hear any valid reasoning behind those decisions, so they don't understand why this is happening. And as we see, according at least to this visualization, having no purpose and having no autonomy leaves people without a clear desire for what they do. And what this typically ends up or leads us to is people overcompensating with mastery. When we talk about software engineers specifically, this means that people, in order to get at least some motivation to continue doing their job, may over focus on the solutions they do. They may come up with solutions which are too complicated, which solve much more problems than the initial requirement was. And this is the way they just fight with having a lack of motivation. People may also deliver solutions that do not serve the purpose they were created for because they don't understand the purpose. So without understanding the purpose, you cannot check yourself whether you are going in the right direction or not. You can understand it only when you show it to some subject matter expert or to some professional. And yeah, of course, motivation by mastery does not work in the long term, because when we talk about software companies and product development, we live in an employees-driven market, meaning that there is much higher demand for people than there are good specialists. And good specialists can always switch the company and find a better place for themselves. And engagement matters. So you can't just ignore the factor of engagement. There are many people nowadays in companies who are not actively engaged. Unfortunately, with all benefits it brings for the work-life balance and for like ecology and economics, the remote work adds up to this problem. So in fact, even back in 2019, 59% of workers were not engaged and 18% of people were actively disengaged on the job, according to the Gallup research. And there were people who were just coasting, and there were about 36% of such people, meaning that they were showing up just to do the minimum required amount of work to be not left out of job. And that's all. They were not caring about the actual results. They were not caring about the actual outcomes. They were just there to play the numbers and make sure that they're on a safe spot. And yeah, this is what I just described people being actively disengaged, people not being interested in what they do, people showing up just to make an illusion that they're doing work is something that none of the companies I worked with would like to. I bet your company would not like to have the situation at your office or in your virtual space too. And unfortunately, changing this, especially if we take the psychological aspect into account, but still focus on delivering a successful product with successful economics, takes quite some effort. And it requires effort from many sides. So let's start from the product manager side. What does it take in order to change the situation, in order to raise the engagement at your workplace if you're a product manager? So first of all, believe it or not, but you need to break the contract game. But when I say the contract game, I mean that situation when companies calls themselves agile, when they say that they have agile roles and titles like product owner, scrum master, etc., but they still have this good old contracting when the one side, being a product manager, have prepared the requirements, another side, being engineers, gave some estimates for these requirements, and after the work has been taken, let's say into the sprint backlog, they consider that they have just signed a contract and have a clear expectation that by the end of sprint everything will be done as agreed. That kind of interaction undermines the whole collaboration aspect, it undermines the engagement aspect, and it also leads to some counterproductive tensions and issues, like, for example, product owner yelling at the team at the sprint review that the work they've promised has not been delivered, and they now need to go and be bashed by their managers or by the customers they promised something. One example, but I bet if your company is doing Scrum or if your company is doing Agile, you might have seen something like this happening. But what does it take to break the contract game? So in order to have us step away from a situation where customer and business and product continually yells more, and developers say less, we need to have a proper collaboration taking place. We need customers or product owners, in the case of Scrum, providing a clear understanding of where they are going and inviting engineers to collaborate as early as possible in order to identify potential shortcuts, in order to identify potential risks in the early stages of product validation and ideation, not when the ready requirement artifact comes to the table. They also need to treat the situations like, for example, sprint planning or like product backlog refinement sessions as not as a negotiation where the one side tries to push more and the other side tries to resist and take less, but as an ability, as a chance for collaboration in order to hear each other, in order to show genuine interest towards each other, and in order to identify the best possible solution for the given problem. Often, such collaboration can result in us understanding the problems better, or even understanding the underlying assumptions behind these problems, which we didn't see before. Because having several people, especially several smart people, think about something is always better than just having a single person think about it. One significant step many product companies, not outsourcing, but product companies, need to make in order to break this contract game is to step away from the isolation of discovery and delivery. Unfortunately, many modern companies which have overcome the early product engineering collaboration problems still live in a paradigm where the product discovery, being the problem ideation, solution ideation, solution validation, being done by a limited group of people, like, for example, product marketing manager, product manager, product designer, and they fail to successfully implement and involve engineering in these early stages in order to get a more diverse perspective and in order to get the input from the technological side. And this is still, as a result, by the time it reaches the delivery stage, we still get the same old contract game. So many root causes of a contract game, if you see its examples in your situation, may be rooted in this strict diversification of delivery and discovery. One good way to avoid that is to have at least some people from the engineering team, or maybe several people from the engineering team, involved in the discovery stage. Have them ideate together with the product manager, with other people involved in the ideation, come up with some working mockups, come up with some requirements that take into account the technical perspective, and as a result, provide a technological input into your ideation stage. One important thing to pay attention to here, when I say involving someone from the engineering side, I don't mean involving the technical leader or engineering manager or some other management role which has engineers in the direct reporting. I talk about real people working in the team, writing code, testing that code, deploying that code, and being as close as possible to the place of actual value creation. Because whenever you involve on a single person, especially if it's a single person again and again, you turn this person into a subject matter expert. And what we want to have in a successful product development team is to have a continuously learning team that shares the knowledge and which does not have a buzz factor of a single person knowing everything and being a go-to person for every question. Let's turn to the middle manager's perspective. What does it take to change the situation from the middle manager? Very often, the behaviors we just described are like dictated by the structures we have. They might be dictated by the way we see people, by the way we define their skill sets, by the way we create our hierarchies, by the way we reward people for their work. So let's say if you're proudly saying on your recruitment page that you aim for a cross-functional collaboration and teamwork, but at the same time you still have roles which get some bonuses or promotions based on the individual performance and individual tasks, numbers or outputs, you are making a big mistake. Because whenever the system is designed in a way that appreciates the individual inputs and individual outputs, you will never get people step away from their individualistic shoes and play as a team. Because what's the purpose for me to work in a team to, I don't know, help to deploy something if I'm an Android engineer, or help to test something if I'm a front-end engineer, when I'm being judged by the number of, let's say, Java tickets or Android tickets I close within every sprint or within a month. You can't expect that, because in the end, we all as a people still have our basic fundamental needs, like job safety, like job security, like having enough funds to feed our family and to, I don't know, pay out our mortgage. And until this is solved, you can't expect people to behave differently. In order to understand how your system actually works and how your current organizational design affects people behavior, I advise managers to practice so-called Gemba walks. This is a good practice from the Toyota production system and from Lean, which means that since team is a place of value creation, managers should not sit in an ivory tower and get all the information about the situation in the teams from some reports, statistics, from a Scrum Master, but they need to sometimes get their shoes dirty and walk around and see what's going on. Ideally, if this is a manager coming from an engineering background, it may be a good idea to join a team for several sprints, see how they live, see what are the challenges they are facing, see how long does it take them to get something deployed or to spin out their new staging environment. And you will very soon discover that many things you've been blaming on people or blaming on something else are the result of the way your system is designed. Last but not the least, it would be wrong to say that all these misconceptions, misassumptions, and problems with Agile are coming only from managers and product owners, because engineers, mature engineers, also need to start doing many things differently, and they first and foremost need to accept the responsibility for the outcome. So very often, managers tend to do management by spreadsheet. As I described before, they will decide who takes which task, who goes to which team, or like how many teams we will have and how many people we will have in each team. Though thinking about that is the right thing to do. If you attend any MBA courses, you will be told that organizational design is part of the manager's job. Don't get me wrong. Organizational design, so the way your company is structured, and resource management, the way people are being allocated within the structure, are two different things. And you need to keep this in mind. So one of the easiest way to change the behavior in the system, or at least to give it a chance, is to adapt the way the work gets distributed. So let's say if you believe that you have mature teams which are successful and which consists of motivated individuals, try to give them a chance to volunteer for the tasks you need to do. Whenever you have the next project, which is important from the company standpoint, don't wait for your manager to open up a spreadsheet and tell who goes there. Be a person that shows up to the manager and tells them that I would like to volunteer for that. I would like to be in that team who will address that critical business requirements, and I will make sure that this will happen within a deadline. This is one thing to show that you are motivated, that you're actually interested, and that you want to focus on business, good for the business, not just for yourself. Of course, managers also need to work on their decision making in order to make this happen. Another thing engineers should do or change is focusing on impact and outcomes over outputs. Very often we will have managers and we will have teams focusing on outputs, being how many user stories have been closed, how many story points have been burned, how many features have been developed, etc., etc. And at the same time, paying zero attention to how many problems have been solved with these user stories, how many new possibilities have been unlocked with these features, how the customer's behavior has changed based on all these releases and updates. Have customers started to spend more time in the application? Are they putting the higher NPS rates, etc., etc.? This is one problem. Another problem is also not thinking about how this impacts a business. So even if you work in a company which does not have a transparent salary rates, just take your own salary, being an individual engineer, multiply it by the number of people you have in your team, and count how much money does a single sprint or single iteration of your team costs to the company. And then ask yourself, okay, does this set of user stories we are working on actually worth that? Will it bring the return on investment which makes it a realistic expectation, or should we be working on something different? Believe me, the moment you start thinking that way about everything you get asked to do, many things will, and start questioning many things, the things will not get as they were before. Many things will change for the better. And last but not the least, you need to hold each other accountable. We need to hold each other accountable. Expecting and outsourcing responsibility for like controlling the quality standards, for making sure people adhere to the code of conduct, for making sure people fulfill previous agreements like action items from the retrospectives to someone else is, in my opinion, an immature behavior. You need to keep each other accountable on a daily basis as professionals who have a clear professional ethos, who have a clear set or a level of quality requirements described in the company policies, and who respect each other, who agree to disagree, who are able to hold sometimes difficult but useful conversations for the sake of common good. If you start doing all these things, or if we all start doing all these things, we can enable a true cross-functional collaboration, the one which leaves space for everyone's ideas and for everyone's input, the one which does not limit only on writing code or drawing architecture, but also brainstorming the product ideas together, brainstorming the solution ideas together, or maybe even interviewing the real customers and having direct conversations with people who are meant to use the software we create. And when this happens, when this true collaboration starts, there is a much higher chance of our products being successful, of our employees being happy, and of everyone delivering cool, great products which will change the world to a better place and which will enable lots of new innovations which will be sparked by that atmosphere and by that experience. That's all from my side. Once again, thank you for joining this talk and joining the conference. Hope to see you next year in person in Poznan, and wish you all a great rest of the day. Thank you.